Alright, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not a pheasant plucker, but a pheasant plucker's fun, son. Okay, that should be a good enough test. Cool. Alright, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not a pheasant plucker, but a pheasant plucker's fun, son. Okay, that should be Oh, why am I feeling vomit in my mouth? Okay. The Death of Kings. My hand hovered over the hollow. My hand hovered over the hollow crown. Should I take it? This was one of those things, years after the fact, which catches your eye as you're rummaging through the shelves of a Nevin charity shop. I blamed Shakespeare for my failures at GCSE. In particular, I blamed those god-awful history plays. Those plays, those sappy few. I blamed these plays before me, and I blamed Mrs. Evans. But my hand still hovered over the hollow crown. Mrs. Evans was dead. Gran and Miriam had sent me the Bristol Post obituary clipping 2 days ago. A heart attack. I had remembered then, after years of burying it, how enthralled by the history plays she had been, how over-enthusiastic. Maybe that was why the book caught my eye. I could hardly recall a thing about those lessons. I had slept through most of them. I remembered only one thing. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. There, in one line, is the history plays. Not just Richard II or III, or Henry V, but all of them. This is what they are, sad stories of the death of kings. I wondered about that quote now, as I picked up the book and tried to find it. Not easy in a thick, leather-bound tome with tiny writing, and especially not when you have no idea of where to start looking. I could not find it. The book was only 50p, so I bought it and took it back to the cottage. The book was only 50p, so I bought it. The book was only 50p, so I bought it and took it back to the cottage. Pretty boy, why did you buy that? Vic sneered at me when she got home, holding the book at arm's length, disgusted more by the state than the Shakespeare. I wanted to find a quote, I said. Why not look it up on the internet? I couldn't answer that. Vic called me a dumbass. The book had the plays chronologically, starting with Richard II. Old John of Gaunt, time-honoured Lancaster, hast thou, according to thy oath and bond, brought hither Henry Hereford, thy bold son? I understood it. I actually understood it. I was shocked. I thought Shakespeare was all oldie-worldy mumbo-jumbo and wherefore art thou, Romeo? I went wrong there. I thought Shakespeare was all oldie-worldy mumbo-jumbo and wherefore art thou, Romeo? It's in the portrait gallery, Juliet. But I understood it. So I fell in, head first. So I fell in, head first. Try that again. So I fell in, head first. The jewel, the cancelled jewel, Gaunt's lament. I knew that. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle. I thought I knew it. I'd heard it as a I thought I knew it. I'd heard it as a praise. But it wasn't a praise. Course not. Course not. It was a look, everything is going to shit. Like Brexit Britain, I thought. Like Brexit Britain, I thought. Like Brexit Britain, I thought. Shakespeare predicted Brexit. And I found it. The quote. This is what the history plays are about, Mrs. Evans had said. I marked the page. I would read the whole thing, and then come back to it, to see if I could see what Mrs. Evans had been talking about. I knew nothing of medieval history. I knew next to nothing of Shakespeare. But I read, and I read, and each night I carried on, scene by scene, act by act. I was shocked. I was horrified. Henry V, what a cliffhanger. They lost France and made his England bleed. What did that mean? Henry VI and Richard III showed me. Absolute chaos. I loved it. Why had nobody told me about this? This was nothing short of epic. Margaret of Anjou's madness. Her torture of Richard Plantagenet. Wow, that was crazy. You mad psycho bitch. But I had been told. Mrs. Evans had told me. Getting as manic as Margaret. Getting all animated and excited. Look at this. What is she doing? She's taunting the would-be king with a paper crown. I heard her say in my head. York cannot speak unless he wear a crown. A crown for York. And lords bow low to him. As I finished the book, late one Friday evening, when Vic was out with friends, I cried. I didn't cry because it was a sad ending. I cried because I understood. I cried because I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to GCSE English literature with Mrs. Evans. I wanted to hear her talk about all these amazing plays. I wanted to share the love. There's a pun in the opening lines of Henry V, she might have said. Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention, a kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. In Shakespeare's day, I read in the footnotes, scene would have been pronounced like saying, as in the river, running right through the center of the play. My mind was blown apart. I wanted to apologize to Mrs. Evans for falling asleep in her class. How young a fool I was. A would-be Falstaff when I should have been a Hal. God damn it, there was even a penis joke in the Band of Brothers speech. How had that fact not thrilled a teenage boy like me? And so I wept. And I wept until the early hours. I wept for the lost opportunity. I wept for that which ignorant youth had carelessly tossed aside. How had Mrs. Evans felt when she saw this boiled-bodied boy with a bone-fluffed beard, lightly dozing, whilst she poured out her soul over this thing she loved? Crushed? Devastated? Heartbroken? How dare I? She must have thought. Fart? What? How dare I? She must have thought. How dare I thought now. Mrs. Evans, you were right to be cross with me. You were right to give me all those directions and... Directions? What? No. You were right to give me all those detentions and lectures on how I should book my ideas up. You were right. Now I knew it. As Richard III called for his horse, I knew it. As I closed the book, I knew it. I knew it. Beck found me on the floor, still weeping, and she put her arms around me. We sat together upon the ground. What about that quote? What about that quote? She asked me. What about that quote? She asked me when I had calmed down. Did you find it? Yeah, they're all in it. The Henrys, the Richards, the Edwards. Even the pretenders like Plantagenet. Yeah, they're all in it. The Henrys, the Richards, the Edwards. Even the pretenders like Plantagenet. I then told her of the whole story, the saga, and I showed her the marked page. Let's talk of graves, of worms and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills. And yet not so, for what can we bequeath save our deposed bodies to the ground? Our lands, our lives, and all are Bolingbroke's, and nothing can we call our own but death, and that small model of the barren earth, which serves as paste and cover to our bones. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. How some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed. All murdered, for within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king, keeps death his court. Molto bene. Do you want to do like a little tiny bit of Hear Me Roar now? Yeah, let's save this first.